Good day, wonderful people out there. I welcome you to the Language Clinic with your language doctor. In today's class, what are we going to be looking at? We'll be looking at a very crucial aspect of a spoken language, that is English as a spoken or written language. We'll be looking at a very crucial aspect of our language, which is what now? The English language. And this aspect has to do with writing. Just as we know that the English language, just like every other languages, have got different aspects. We have the writing aspect of it, which has to do with how do we put into use all the grammar that we've learned and the likes. Then we have the pronunciation aspect of it, which is the phonological aspect of it. It has to do with how our words pronounce, use of stress, and the likes. And we also have the aspect that has to do with how do we blend words together to make meaningful sentences, clauses, phrases, and the like. We refer to that as grammar. But in today's class, we'll be looking at writing. Generally in schools, what we learn is what now? English composition. So we can have any form of composition. What do we refer to as composition? Composition has to do with creating, bringing, using your initiative, bringing into existence. So whenever we talk about composition, you can have a musical composition. Somebody can compose a song. We can even have an art composition, whereby somebody can sit down and have an imagination and decide to put some drawings together. It is still composition. So composition can take any format. But whenever we talk about English composition, what we are referring to is what now? A kind of composition that is done using the English language. So now, sometimes we ask ourselves, what do we understand by English composition or composition itself? Some composition simply means a piece of writing that is done by a student to satisfy a course of study. You find out that when you leave secondary school, even primary school to secondary school, you are expected to write essay or you are expected to write letter. You write a form of composition before you can graduate or before you can get promoted to the next class. The same thing, if you do not write this and you are writing your SSC exam, you cannot be promoted, or probably I can say what now, you cannot have a good grade in English language. So this, the same thing happen when you are an undergraduate. The only time you graduate is after you must have written your long essay, which has to do with your thesis, your project, your dissertation, and the likes. So whenever we do this, what we refer to is what? We refer to them as composition. Imagine somebody spending 5 years in the university or 4 years in the university studying a particular course, and in the end, you refuse to write a project, you refuse to write a thesis, then you cannot graduate. So that is why we say what now? The composition has to do with what now? A piece of writing that is expected to be done by a student to satisfy a course of study. So a student must carry out this before we can simply say you have satisfied a course of study. So we refer to that as composition. So the composition that is done in the English language, using the English as a language, we refer to it as what now? English composition. If you are studying Yoruba, you will definitely write Yoruba, a composition in Yoruba, which is Yoruba composition. If you are studying French, you will definitely write composition in French, which is referred to as what now? French composition. So the same thing goes for what now? For English composition. So generally what I call it, sometimes I don't call it composition, I just call it writing. Then we now say this composition, English composition, most of us teach our students, we need to break them down. We tell them English composition, meaning a piece of writing done by a student to satisfy a course of study, which is using what now? The English language. That's the definition of what now? Of English composition. Now, having done that, we now look at it. What are the types of composition? We refer to what are the types of composition. Just tell the students English composition. This is it. Then from English composition, we have got two major types. What are the two major types? Essay writing and we have what now? Letter writing. So don't get them confused. Sometimes teachers, language instructors, they get the pupils or the students under them confused by telling them essay. So the children, when they tell them essay writing, and under essay writing, they now begin to mention letter or argumentative essay. You get them confused. So what you should know is we have composition, English composition. This composition is divided into two. So we now have one aspect is what now? Essay writing. Another aspect is what now? Letter writing. Then under essay writing is now grouped into 4. So it has 4 groups. So meaning that they are not the only types of essays that we have, but they are the what now? The major types of essay that we have. So a good example, with the 4 are, sometimes I call the 4 DEAN, D-E-A-N, D-E-A-N. So they are the major types of essays that we have in English language, are just what now? 4. What are they now? We have descriptive essay, expository essay, or also called explanatory essay. Then we have argumentative essay, also called arguments. Then we have, lastly, we have a narrative essay. So these are the 4 major types or group of what now? Of essays. So whenever you are asked types of essay, composition divided into 2. We have essay writing, then we have what now? Letter writing. Then besides the 2 now, we now have under essay. Essay is grouped into 4. There are 4 of them. We have descriptive essay, an essay that describes an event, a group of people, a place, object, and the likes. Then we have expository essay or an explanatory essay. It's a kind of essay that attempts to expose, reveal, or tell you more details about a particular subject matter. Then we have argumentative essay. It is a written form of a debate. A written form of a debate. Then we have the narrative essay. It is a form of essay that attempts to tell stories in the past tense. That means it tells us about something that happened in the past. That is what a narrative essay tells us. They are the 4 major types. Now, this does not mean that besides these 4, we do not have other types of essay. We do. But how do we realize this? Now, from these 4, whenever you have the blend of features of 2 or more of the major 4 types, definitely it is going to give you another type of essay. That is where we now got other types of essays from. You'll be wondering that, mentioning the types of essay, report is not included now, minute writing, memorandum, and the likes. Yes, the reason is because we cannot actually categorize them as types, under types of essay. But we have the features they have can be traced to 2 or more major types. So a good example now, when an essay is written and this essay exposes, this essay narrates, this essay explains, this essay argues, this essay describes, definitely we cannot call the essay all the names. We definitely have to call it a what now? Another name. So we have a good example. Let's assume I want to write an essay that narrates, explains, and also describes. So I can simply write something like a what now? A report. So a report is also a type of essay. So in writing a report, you are expected to narrate. So you are expected to describe. Sometimes you are expected to argue. And you are also expected to what now? To also expose. That is why it is referred to as a what now? As a report. So another one is what now? Minute writing. You are writing a minute. A minute writing. If you are writing a minute, you will simply find out that in a minute, you are going to narrate sometimes. You are actually going to what now? To describe events. You understand? So you are already employing the features of two or more major types of essay. So other forms of essay include we have memorandum, we have report writing, we have article writing, we have long essays, we have dissertation, we have thesis. The list is endless. We can continue to work now to mention the types of essay. But something is general to all essays. Essays are not expected to have dates, address, so we don't expect them to have that. But something is general to them. A common features of all essays is what now? Title. Every essay must begin with a title or the topic. Then in our subsequent class, we are going to look at how each type of essay is written, the format for each type of essay. I'm going to take that in our subsequent classes. So having said that, now we now move to the second aspect of our English composition, which has to do with what? Letter writing. Then when we look at letter writing majorly is divided into two. We have the formal letter and the informal letter. One thing people say today is that why do we still take letter writing? It is now computer age. People no longer write letters. I laugh because one thing is there is no way you can go through life without writing a letter, because there are so many things you want to do that you can actually what now just resolve those issues except a letter is written. A good example, you have a drop balance in your account and you go to the bank to complain to the manager. You can't just complain verbally to the bank manager. You have to what? To write a letter to that effect. So you want to get employed, you are applying for a job, you are even applying for a position for scholarship, or you must write a letter. Either you write it electronically or it is written using your writing pad and your pen. So you must write a letter. So, but there are major types of letters that I do tell people is, even in exams, is what now? The formal letter and what now? An informal letter. The formal letter has to do with what now? A kind of letter that is written to businesses, to organizations, to companies. Whenever you are writing a letter and it is said to be an official letter, we refer to it as a formal letter. So what we refer to as a formal letter has to do with the kind of letter that we write to companies or we write to people in position of authority. So we refer to them as formal letters. So formal letters are the kind of letters that are written to companies, organizations, bodies, and we have people in position of authority. We refer to them as formal letter. So we have different forms of formal letter. A formal letter can be written from an individual to a group, and it can be written from a group to an individual. A good example, application letter is an example of a formal letter. We have query is an example of formal letter. We have we can also have something like a sack letter is an example of what now? Of a formal letter. The condolences is an example of formal letter. We have letter of complaint is an example of formal letter. Recommendation is an example of formal letter. So just name them. The list is endless. So for as long as that particular type of letter is going out to a company or from a company to an individual and it is treated as official, we refer to it as what now? As a formal letter. So a formal letter is equally called a private letter or an official letter. So it has its own features, which we will be looking at in our subsequent classes, and we'll look at how it is written. While we have an informal letter, it's a type of letter that is written to family and friends. So I call it a letter to FAF, F-A-F, meaning you only write this type of letters to families and friends. The kind of letter that we write to family members and our friends, we refer to it as what now? As informal letter. So we call it informal because it's always a friendly letter. It is not expected to be treated as a formal or an official or a business letter. So this type of letter is written to those people that are very close to us, those people we call our family members, those people we relate with, that we can also use informal languages with them. We refer to such letter as an informal letter. So what distinguishes a formal letter from an informal letter? One of it is what now? The language in use. In a formal letter, you use a formal language. In an informal letter, you use an informal language. A good example is, it is wrong in a formal letter to ask, how are your kids? Because kids, simply, it's an informal word. The word is informal to say kids. Why we have what now? Children is what now? Is formal. So meaning that what children will be used in a formal letter, why kids can be used in what now? In an informal letter. Cannot will be used in a formal letter, why can't is expected to be used in an informal letter. Then the third type of letter is the semi-formal letter. So I don't like to get students confused on this. What I do is what now? I tell them this. A semi-formal letter is a type of letter that is written to somebody who is familiar, who is closer, who is very, very close to us, but occupies a position of authority. Occupies a position of authority. Then we refer to that particular person as an elderly person or somebody whom we treat with respect. So we write what type of letter to such a person? We write a semi-formal letter. A good example of a semi-formal letter is a student writing a letter to the class teacher is a semi-formal letter. Then the question is, as a student in the secondary school or a pupil in the secondary school, if you are writing letter to the principal, who happens to be the head of a secondary school, what type of letter should you write? You are going to write a formal letter because the principal is the head, the overall head. But if you are writing to your class teacher, you are expected to write a semi-formal letter. If you are writing to your subject teacher, you are expected to write a semi-formal letter because your subject teacher occupies a position of authority, but at the same time is very close. Somebody that is very cordial, very closer to you, closer than the principal of the school. We must note that. Somebody also asked a question. If my father happens to be the bank manager, and I want to apply for a job in that bank, what type of letter should I write? I told the person, if your father is a bank manager, once your father is a manager of any company and you are applying in such a company, you are seen as an applicant, not as father to child. So the kind of letter you're going to write in that respect is a formal letter. At work, is not your father, it's your boss, it's the manager. So at home, that person can continue to be your father. The same thing happens if your mom owns a school and is the principal of that school and you want to write a letter. For as long as you are writing to the principal, you are not writing to your mom. So that type of letter must be a formal letter. So we must write a formal letter to that effect. After this class, I'll be taking you through how the different types of essays are written and the different types of letters are also written. I'll be taking you through how they are written. With details, we'll simply write on the board how it is written, then we can simply learn from that. So I say thank you for watching. I see you in the next lesson. So bye for now.